Cool. I should be live. Let me double check. And there I am. Is it really live? Yeah, it's live. Cool, let me pause this for a sec, or at least mute it. And I'm gonna mute this. And let's get to the Robert Dowland file. So last time we continued on and we covered these observations about capoing and fingering, having multiple notes on the same fret, basically, and what Besard thought about it, what his suggestions were. He gave us some exercise. We kind of played through them, more or less. And let's see, so we finished this. I don't know what the C stands for here. Anyway, let's continue on. He's talking about of holding, so I'm guessing holding the lute. Let's see, the same order you may keep in the lower frets, only in them for the most part, and very often we use to lay the finger across the fret for more easiness, right? So saying it's easy to make a capo. And I was really curious if maybe their lutes had a radiused fingerboard. I mean, because their viols did, you know, but I'm not sure the lutes did. And I mean, there's some surviving lutes, and I mean they're flat, but I mean, makes me curious. Anyway, of holding. Therefore, I will now speak of holding the fingers upon a string. Okay, so he's not holding the lute; it's holding. Pressing on strings, basically, which is in this part necessary, which is in this part very necessary, because nothing is more sweet than when those parts, the mothers of harmony, are rightly combined, which cannot, if the fingers be suddenly taken from the strings. Okay, suddenly taken from the strings. For that voice perisheth so dainly, for the voice perisheth so suddenly, when the stopping thereof is ended. Okay, so he's talking about holding notes, you know, for longer values, and not lifting the fingers right after plucking, which is a very common thing for beginner players to have. Whether it's guitar or whatever, you know, you see that quite a bit. So just kind of exemplify. Let me fix my camera real quick here. Cool. Lute in view. Right, so it's talking about this. Just holding down, as opposed to, or if I'm playing a chord. Right. So anyway, let's keep reading. And besides, nothing is more uncommonly than to have the left hand moved up and down often, and that means to occasion too much motion of the arm, which is with all care to be avoided. Besides, by staying the fingers on a string, you shall easily run up and down upon the neck of your lute at your pleasure, that the very handling of it, after a little labor and time, pitchingly born. Is that what it says? Oh, patiently born. Will be no more troublesome to you than a pleasant walk. Therefore, keep your fingers in what strings soever you strike, especially when you strike the bass, whilst the other fingers are stopping other stops, and remove them not till another note come, which doth immediately fall upon another bass, or some other part. Yeah, so as I was saying earlier, holding down the bass, right? Or some other part. And if you may hold the bass and the treble together, and if you may, okay, I forgot the comma. And if you may, hold the bass and the treble together, if there be certain middle notes to be expressed, but if you may not for want of more fingers, take away that finger of the most part which stops the treble. For it were better that the note perish than a bass. Okay, so in the case of a middle run, right? So we'll use this as an example. So forth, so on. I could hold down the bass note and the treble note and the high note while this is moving. But he's saying if it's convenient, if I'm having difficulty with the middle line and I have to choose between letting one of these go, he says choose the bass. Keep the bass, and you can lose the melody, the high note, if there's movement in the middle voice. This is what it sounds like again. Removing the bass, removing the high note. So yeah. Anyway, or some other part. And if you may, okay, I just read that. For it were better that note perished than a bass. Generally, take this for a rule. The fingers must not be taken from the strings without it being necessary. Yet take heed whilst you play diminutions, that one note give place to another, and not held with the note following. Right. So yeah, be careful of over ringing. Something like if I have this line, I don't want these two playing at the same time. I want to be able to stop. Anyway, that's what he's talking about. Thus much for the staying of the fingers on a string, and of the usage of the left hand shall suffice for their use, which are merely ignorant, to be slightly spoken, whereof one cannot deliver such plain and certain precepts as he may of the right hand, the use whereof to my power I will not set down. Okay. I didn't quite follow that part. Right. Oh, got something here. Hang on. Cool. Anyway. Thus much for the staying of the fingers on a string, and of the usage of the left hand shall suffice for their use, which are merely ignorant, to be slightly spoken, whereof one cannot deliver such plain and certain precepts as he may of the right hand, the use whereof to my power I will not set down. Okay. I still don't get it. Man, all that... Hang on. If I had to delete some of these additional things, what would it say? Hang on. Let me make some space here for my tablet so I can write on this document. because I genuinely want to understand what he's talking about here. Sorry about the noise. Alright, so let's redact some things here. Let me move my microphone too. It's too much in the way. Much for staying of the fingers on a string and of the usage of the left hand. Whoa. Yeah, that's not gonna cut it. Yeah, that's good enough. Let's get rid of this one. Okay, so thus much for the staying of the fingers on a string and of the usage of the left hand to be slightly spoken, as he may of the right hand, the use whereof to my power I will not set down. Okay, so he's talking about balance or responsibility of hands. Maybe he's talking about not stopping the string with the right hand with the plucking hand. That might be it, but it's still a little confusing. Alright, let's keep reading on. Okay, for the use of the right hand, first set your little finger on the belly of the lute, not towards the roof, not towards the rose, but a little lower. Stretch out your thumb with all the force you can, especially if thy thumb be short, so that the other fingers may be carried in a manner of a fist. Okay, in a manner of a fist, and let the thumb be held higher than them. This in the beginning will be hard, yet they will have a short thumb. Yet they which have a short thumb may imitate those which strike the strings with the thumb under the other fingers. And it looks like somebody highlighted thumb under technique, right? Which though it be nothing so elegant, yet to them it will be more easy. Now choosing one of these kinds. Okay, so hang on. Interesting. So if you have short fingers, first of all, he's talking about doing this, right? So not on the rose, but behind the rose, first of all. And then set the thumb back. He said stretch, right? Stretch out your thumb with all the force you can. All right, so I'm stretching here. Look how much I'm stretching. Especially if thy thumb be short, so that the other fingers may be carried in a manner of a fist. Right, of a fist. Okay, so I'm doing this. This is very uncomfortable for me, by the way. So he's talking about thumb under. So this is interesting. Yet they which have a short thumb may imitate those which strike the fingers with the thumb under the other fingers. Which have short thumbs may imitate those which strike the strings with the thumb under. So that's interesting. So he's acknowledging that there are people who play with the thumb under and people who don't play, and people with short thumbs might have an easier time imitating those who play with thumb under, as opposed to the implied those that don't. So in other words, this is not the end all be all for lute technique. Doesn't seem like that, at least. it's perfectly fine to do something like this. To have the thumb over. Interesting. See, they highlight the thumb under, but they didn't highlight this part, which is much more intriguing to me because that speaks to the general practice, to the variation of practice of lute players, of lutenists of the time. Right. Now choosing one of these kinds, learn first to strike the strings more hard and clear, whether they be one or more that are to be stricken, and that you may strike them with the right fingers. Mark whether one string, which stand close together be stroken with the thumb and four fingers. If two strings be distant one from another, so that there be one or two strings between them. Hang on, I gotta reread that again because I'm on retard mode right now. Now choosing one of these kinds. So one of these kinds, so I'm guessing thumb positioning, whether it's thumb under or the implied thumb over. Learn first to strike the string more hard and clear, whether there be one or more that are to be stricken and clear. Okay, I need to make clearer stops here with the commas. Learn first to strike the string more hard and clear. Okay, so step one. Learn that basically. And then whether they be one or more that are to be stricken, and that you may strike them with the right fingers. Mark whether one string or more strings than one are to be stricken. Okay, god damn it. If more than one, keep this rule. Let two strings which stand close together be stroken with the thumb and the four fingers. If two strings be distant one from another, so that there may be one or two strings between them, strike them with the thumb and middle finger. Okay, so adjacent strings, thumb and index. If there's one string or two, use the middle and the thumb. Right. Okay, simple enough. And middle fingers. Strike also three strings with the thumb, the forefinger, and the middle finger. Four strings with all the other fingers, excepting the little finger. Okay. That's funny. With all the other fingers, so in addition to the index and the middle, all the other fingers, but not so the remaining one. Unless you have like 6 fingers or something, I don't know. So yeah, you can use PIMA. Anyway, if more be to be stroken, as oft there be, keeping the same order with your fingers, let the thumb and the forefinger strike each of them 2 strings. If so, many be to be stroken. Wait, what? If more, okay, so more than 4 strings need to be stricken, as oft there be, keeping the same order with your fingers, let the thumb and the forefinger strike each of them. Each of them 2 strings. Okay, so 2 strings per finger. So let's say, so here I have this chord. and do 2 strings per finger. So normally it would be 4, 3, 2, 1 on the courses, right? And right here. But let's say we're starting on the 6th course. I would use the thumb for those two. Right. But let's say it was 7 courses. Then I would use 1, 2. Right. Is that what he's saying? Something like that, maybe? Maybe. If so, maybe to be stroking. Alright. To know how to strike single strings excuse me, being found amongst the full stops. Hang on. To know how to strike single strings being found amongst full stops. Okay, single strings. Okay, so I'm guessing he's talking about something like this. Damn. There it is. Damn, I'm retarded today. Yeah, so multiple strings with strings that are not going to be struck in between, I guess. Now that you may know which finger you must strike those notes which are found alone without the grises, without the steps, examine diligently the measure that each had to it allotted, and if a letter be set immediately after any step, which letters is of the same measure with the step. Then when you have played that step, I'm replacing the word gris with step because that's kind of what makes sense. That's the definition I found for it. You must needs begin the note following with your forefinger at all times, and afterwards use the thumb if you meet a third note, and so go forwards by degrees, keeping such order with the thumb and forefinger, so that as long as you play in that measure, you begin nothing with the thumb twice together, nor follows with the forefinger twice together, till you come to a letter or gris where the measure changes, which letter, if it were alone, must needs be struck with the thumb at all times. But if after the gris you find a note which hath over it any change of time, then having played that gris, begin the note following with the thumb, staying a while upon the said gris or note going before, as the nature of the time shall require. Okay? Did you get all that? Jesus fucking Christ. Like, I'm sure it's nothing too inconsequential what he's talking about, but I mean, I guess overall he's talking about thumb and index finger alternation when you have like a run in a single measure or something like that. So let's see. Wait a second. Gotta reply to this. One sec. Right. Let's see. Let me change something here. Yeah, I'm not going to bother rereading that. And the other notes with the thumb and forefinger, one after the other. Yet is there an exception in this exception, for when you find a grist measure with the stepping. I guess grist means scale. I mean, it's stepping, right? Measure with a prick, as for example, right, that, and there follow it many notes, the first whereof is that, right, or if you meet with such a one, that, and after it such a one, that one, although the measure with the prick do go before, yet must that which follows, contrary to this rule, begin with the thumb. Okay, so anything afterwards begins with the thumb. So start with the thumb, right? Something like that, maybe. For example, this rule and other strings which have formerly propounded let this suffice. For the better understanding whereof, note that the letters which you shall find without a prick added to them must be stroked with the right hand thumb. Those which have a prick set by them or under them with the forefinger, the other number do show the application of the other letters played together. The number of 2 signifieth the middle finger, and the number 3 the next finger. Okay. Wherefore the numbers before the letters showeth, maybe sueth, I don't know what word that is. And let's see the example of the first rule. Alright, so let's see this example. We got the third finger and first finger. Wait, what the hell is he? I thought he was talking about right hand. Normally when we see numbers next to the letters, that means left hand fingering. So this would be third finger on D and first finger on C. But he was just talking about thumb and index alternation. Oh, he was talking about that prick right there under the letter. Okay. Never mind. I was thinking there was some mistake here, but no, it's fine. Yeah, this indicates right hand fingering. So yes, number left hand fingering, the dots right hand fingering, plucking hand fingering, I should say. So hang on, let's reread that real quick. Right after such, although measure with the prick do before yet thumb. Those which have a prick set by them or under them with the forefinger. Okay, so a prick, one single prick, is with the first finger, the index finger. The other numbers do show the application of the other letters played together. The number of 2, okay, the number of 2 pricks, right? 2 pricks signifies the middle finger. The number of 3 pricks, the next finger. Okay, so I think that's what he was referring to, specifying. So let's see, example of the first rule. And this is not the first rule. The first rule was like somewhere back here, but it was 2 voice. I just kind of gave up on it. So we got this, 3 and 1. And then we got 3, 4, 2. And then we got A, 3, 4, 2, right? And then we got 1, 1, AA, which I don't like because of that. So I'm just going to do 1, 2, AA. And then this one. Right. just one. So open 1, 2, 3, and I'm talking about left-hand fingerings here. First finger, second finger, third finger, and then open. Right. Moving on. Example of the second rule. Okay, so here we have a what he call a gris, or steps, or a scale, a melodic run basically. So we have the chord this. So 1, 3, 2. That's a C major chord, by the way, which it's out of tune. That A is getting sharp again. Let's ignore it for now. And then the run. That one is going to start with the first finger because it has one prick. And as he was saying earlier, it's going to start with the index finger, and then this next one is going to be played with the thumb, index, thumb, index, thumb, index, and then whatever finger is necessary for this. So we have this, and then index, thumb, index, thumb, index, thumb, index. Let's do that again. Sorry. Oops, I screwed up the finger. Right, so basically just up, down. Essentially, I guess what I'm doing here is, or what he's having me do here, is to utilize this motion, right? And it's very similar to using, sorry about that, very similar to using a quill, right? So if I'm holding a quill and I'm playing the as a plectrum, basically, I'm kind of doing this number up and down, right? So with a quill, and I wish I had a risha with me. I do have a risha, but I have to go to my, I have to step out. What the hell is this? Definitely not a risha. Actually, I have this. Yeah, sure. Right. I don't like that. It's rough. I don't want to screw up the string. I already popped the string this morning. So we got this, and with quill, this would be upstroke, downstroke. Sorry. Upstroke, downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke. Right. So we're trying to simulate that with the two fingers, right? So the index finger is going to do upstrokes, and the thumb is going to do downstrokes. So up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Sorry. I'm so classically trained that it's just natural to kind of use the closest finger to the string. And then same chord again. Cool. All right. Example of the third rule. I'm looking at this middle one now. So let's look at the chord here. We got 3 and 2. We got this chord. And then we have with the thumb. So and that's going to be a D. Or maybe an F. I don't know if this was written for 7-course lute or 8-course lute. It doesn't specify. What chord do we have? We have C, F, A. Okay, we have an F chord, so I'm going to go with 7-course. Sorry, I'm going to go with my 7th course as the bass. So maybe they're using 8-course lute for this. This was published in 1612, I believe. So yeah, I think it would have been fairly common for them to be using 8-course and 9-course lutes at this point. So, okay. Right, so anyway, let's look at this thing again. So, oh, sorry, I have that chord, and then something like that. Okay. And an example of the fourth rule. We have C and A, C, A, this chord. Something like that. So upstroke, downstroke. Okay, so that's interesting. That kind of makes sense because the E here, and that's not the note, by the way. That's the I'm talking about the position with the prick being played with the index finger. That's a leading tone to the next note. In this case, what do I have in this chord? So let's see. We have there's a D, A, no, sorry, D, F, A, D, right? So a D minor, basically. And this is the leading tone to A, sorry, D. So it's a C sharp. Sorry, I can't sing. So the significant note is the A, and you want that to be played with the thumb, because the thumb is heavier and it's going to accent it a little bit. So it's going to sound like a resolution rather than just movement. Here's what it sounds like. Actually, let me play it as it's written with the index on the leading tone. Sorry. I know we have this chord. I keep forgetting. Here's what it sounds like playing the leading tone with the thumb. I don't know if you can hear the difference of the accentuation. So thumb, index, index, thumb. Right. There's just a little extra heaviness to that, to the thumb, which again just orally marks the resolution. So forth, so on. All right. An example of the exception from the fourth rule, which was the one we just played. So he's got this chord here, this F chord. And then he's got, that's right. Right. Where was the exception anyway? So this was da 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 da. Oh, I think I played the rhythm wrong too. A 2 E and I think that's what it should be. 1, 2, and a 3 N, right? 2 and a 3. Anyway, whatever. So I guess this would be the exception here. Maybe somewhere in here. Yeah, this would be the exception right here. So starting with thumb. And then he's got so forth, so on. All right. I would love to go back and reread his explanation, but it's just so verbose. I get lost in it, man, to be honest. My reading is shit. Anyway, let's move on. These things being well observed, These things being well observed, know that the 2 first fingers may be used in diminutions very well instead of the thumb and the forefinger, if they be placed with some bases, so that the middle finger be in place of the thumb, which thumb whilst it is occupied in striking at least the bases, both the hands will be graced and that unmanly motion of the arm, which many cannot so well avoid, shall be shunned. What? Okay, so he's talking about doing some kind of faux pas here by accident. Hang on, what is this about? So, of playing with the 2 fingers. Okay. Let's reread that again. See what I mean? There's somebody watching, and yeah, like, yeah, you're with me. Like, I'm sure. Yeah. Anyway, these things will, these things being well observed, know that the two first fingers may be used in diminutions very well instead of the thumb and the forefinger. Oh, okay. So know that the two first fingers may be used in diminutions. So I guess these would be the diminutions that he's talking about. Yeah, that's the thing about reading these kinds of manuscripts, and like this is the first one that I read, or at least the first one that I intend on reading from beginning to end, because I've read a little bit of Narvaez's sixth book of the musical dolphin or whatever. That was in Spanish, of course, and I was only reading about the piece that I was playing. So this is the first time I'm actually going through this in an English manuscript. The Narvaez manuscript was in Spanish, of course, which luckily I can read, and I do have an accent, so that's what my accent is, Spanish, from like Mexico or whatever, and I also have a speech impediment, so that doesn't help. Anyway, oh yeah. So he was talking about that not all diminutions, stuff like this, or whatever. It doesn't always have to be thumb and index. It can also be index and middle, with the first two fingers, as he was saying. This the forefinger, so I guess these would be the two first fingers. May be used in diminutions very well intended of the thumb. Very well instead of the thumb and the forefinger. Okay, so index and middle combination instead of the thumb and index combination. If they be placed with some basis, so that the middle finger be in place of the thumb. Okay, so he's talking about replacing something like this with the thumb. So let's say right, so the thumb is occupied way down here, right? And then I can use the middle, index, and then this, right? I guess I can do that. Okay, so that means I'm safe, because being a classical guitarist, I'm so used to using these two fingers, the index in the middle, as opposed to, right? To me, using the thumb in there feels a little bit clumsier, and it probably sounds clumsier too. I mean, I guess everything that I play sounds clumsy, because it is clumsy, because I'm a crummy player. But but this is a much more natural motion for me to make. Yeah, so using the first. Okay, so that's cool. I'm glad he mentioned that. Forefinger, if they be placed with some basis, so that the middle finger be in place of the thumb, which thumb, whilst it is occupied in striking at least a basis, both hands will be graced, and that unmanly motion of the arm, which cannot so well avoid, shall be shunned. Okay, and that unmanly motion of the arm shall be shunned. What unmanly motion? What? He's making a joke here, but what's the joke? This is fascinating to me. Unmanly motion. I'm reading that correctly, right? Unmanly motion of the arm. So is he talking about, like this? Like, yeah. The fuck? I guess if you're looking at me from behind, it looks like I'm, occupied, doing something not quite right, but right, because this, using the I and M alternation, there's very little movement of the arm, while as opposed to thumb and index, There's a little more movement, especially if I'm doing thumb undertaking. So I guess it's unmanly. I don't know. I don't know what to think, but that's funny, I guess. If that's what he was referring to, then it's really funny. Anyway, maybe the person watching, maybe you please chime in if you have an opinion on this. But anyway, I'm gonna continue on. But if with the said diminutions there be not set bases which are to be stopped, I will not counsel you to use the two first fingers, but rather the thumb and the forefinger. Okay, hang on. But if the said diminutions there be not set bases, okay, so if there's no base, if you don't have to worry about bases, then use the thumb, forefinger. That's going to be your default, according to this guy, who apparently looks down on self-love. But anyway, thumb and forefinger. Neither will I with you to use the forefinger. I think I lost my sentence. If you be to proceed, that is to run, onto the fourth, first, or sixth string, with diminutions set also with some parts. Wait, god damn it. I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot when I read this because it sounds like it's because of the tone that I'm using, like it sounds like there's a continuation or sometimes sentence, and it's like it's a mismatch of tone and intent of the writer. But I mean, it's almost like reading a different language. You know, you kind of have to figure out the rhythm of it, and it's kind of difficult if you don't really know how these people were speaking. You know, because we speak very differently from them, apparently. They like to talk. Man, these guys were running their mouth all the time, yapping about. Anyway, let me begin here again. But if with the said diminutions there be not set bases which are to be stopped, I will not counsel you to use the two first fingers, but rather the thumb and the forefinger. Neither will I with you which that's not with. Neither will I wish you. Okay, yeah, it's wish. Okay, that's goddamn thumb and the forefinger. Neither will I wish you to use the two forefingers. The two forefingers. I guess he's talking about I and M. If you be to proceed, that is to run, into the fourth, first, or sixth string with diminutions, set also with some parts. God damn it! I did again. The mismatch of the tone. But if with the set diminutions there be not set bases which are to be stopped, I will not counsel you to use the first fingers, but rather the thumb and the forefinger. Neither will I wish you to use the two forefingers. If you be to proceed, that is to run, onto the fourth, fifth, or sixth string with diminution, set also with some parts. Okay, I think I read it correctly now. Okay. Anyway. Besides, you shall know that the low letters A, placed in the bases, from the fourth chorus to the ninth, did he mean courses? So it is a 9-course lute that this is being written for. Interesting. From the fourth courses. That, man, courses. Is that how they spelled it? He's talking about the string, so I'm going to go with courses and not chorus. Even though it looks an awful lot like a U. I don't know, viewer, what do you think? Say that's a U or an SES. A good note. Anyway, besides, you shall know that the low letter A placed in the basses from the fourth courses to the ninth, if they be noted with this time, the crotchet may more fitly, right? That says fitly. Fitly, they must all be struck with the thumb, and most commonly so they are stricken, although this time the quaver be put to them, as you shall more easily see in the example following. Okay, so he's talking about basses here. And what does the C2 mean? Does that mean example too? I don't know. So he's talking about using the thumb more than anything when it comes to melodic runs and the bass strings. I'm still bothered by that word. Chorus or courses? Fucking hell. Anyway, so he's got this. And then he's got this bullshit here. Well, that's not like any chord I played. That sounds cool. So forth, so on. And then so forth, so on. Right, so yeah, basically just use the thumb for all that. So forth, so on. Okay. I could with you take as much pains in marking the measures as in the other former rules, especially if you be a beginner. Be not too hasty in handling the lute, for I dare promise you faithfully and without deceit that nothing is more fit to second this business than patience in the beginning. For nothing can be gotten in an instant, and you must not think to play your lessons presently at first sight, for that is impossible. Wherefore take no other care, but only to strike all the graces. Let's see. So hang on. In this instance, does that have a connotation of? What's the word? God damn it. Damn, I forgot the word. But I was watching an interview with Paulo Det, and someone was asking about phrasing, and Paulo Det's answer involved, tempo, because sometimes there are parts that where you use like 30-second notes or something like that. He was using an example in I guess what would be modern notation, and he says that the most common thing for students to do is to play the entire piece at the speed at which they can get that one particular measure with that fast note, and he says that isn't you wouldn't necessarily do that, and I hope I'm not misquoting him here, but if I remember correctly, he said you wouldn't necessarily do that. You can just slow down enough to play that fast run, because this music is all about God damn it, I was hoping the word would pop up. I'm suffering from aphasia, I think. God damn it. What's the word? See, I'm thinking graces, but it's not graces. It's gestures. That's what it is. Yeah, so the music is based on gestures, you know. So I'm assuming I'm pronouncing it correctly now. Graces. Does it have the connotation of gestures? All the graces. Then again, the definition that was given to me by googling it said it refers to steps. You know, so for me, melodic runs. Anyway, graces and notes that are in the middle between them, well and plainly, though slowly. For within a while, whether you will or no, you will get a habit of swiftness. Neither can you get the clear expressing of notes unless you do use yourself to that in the beginning, which clean delivery every man that favors music doth prefer before all the swiftness and unreasonable noise that can be. Yeah, so he's talking about, you know, just approaching the lute, he's talking to a beginner, of course, approaching the lute with a mindset of doing things properly and slow from the get-go. To not expect yourself to do everything, right off the bat. Things take time, but, you do yourself a favor, a great service, if you prioritize properness, properness of striking the string, clarity of sound, so forth, so on, so that you then don't have to work on it after so many years, like yours truly here, Anyway, so that's what he's talking about here for the most part. It's what noise that can be right before all swiftness and unreasonable. So yeah, you can play fast, but have a lot of extraneous noise, basically. This more I will tell you. You must be careful when... Hang on, let me try to use Obi-Wan voice, because it just kind of reminded me of Obi-Wan. This more I will tell you, Luke. You must be careful when you begin to learn to carry your body, comely Luke, and right hand... steadily. You will never find a more wretched hive of lutenists. Anyway, some there be that bind the right hand with a napkin or girdle, whilst they play upon the lute, that they may seem to move nothing but their fingers and joints, which you must use. Okay, this is very interesting. So that in running they may seem scarcely to be moved. In like sort must you use the thumb and the forefinger. Okay, so that's interesting. So he's talking about fine technique here. So this is giving me a greater idea of what these high-profile lutenists looked and sounded like, or sounded and looked like. They sounded great and they look great too, I'm sure. I hope you're watching. Hope that's you watching. Just got your text. I think that's your text. But anyway, I'll check your text in a sec. If you are watching, I'll check it regardless of whether you're watching or not. But anyway, so he's talking about very, very fine techniques. So he's talking about this. You can play something. Let's say. Look how much movement I have here. Right, moving from chord, so forth, so on. A lot of movement, whereas you don't really need that. It's unnecessary. So he's, to his point of doing things properly from the get-go, you kind of want to be graceful in the way you move the hands. Not so much move the hand, but rather move the joints, the fingers. And this is something that I was cogitating last year. Sometime last year. Just looking at my classical guitar technique and why I was having so much difficulty playing the pieces that I was playing, and it was because of that. I wasn't putting in the time in building, in polishing technique basically, and I really do mean fine polishing. And then sometime last year, I was waking up really early and spending like 2 to 3 hours, just doing very slow movement stuff, going through a pumping nylon. So basically, so to his point, if you put a cloth over your hand and you play and you see a lot of movement, I guess that's wrong. You're doing it wrong. So the less movement you see, the better. So that's what he's talking about here. All right, let me check. Right. Anyway, move and sort. You must use thumb and the forefinger. Where was I? Take this for. You should have some rules. Okay, I guess I just finished reading this. Some there be that bind the right hand with napkin. Okay, yeah. Use that running may seem scarcely to be moved. In like sort you must use the thumb and forefinger. Okay, whatever. You should have some rules for the sweet relishes and shakes. Relishes and shakes. Okay, so these are ornaments he's talking about. You should have some rules for the sweet relishes and shakes, if they could be expressed here, as they are on the lute. But seeing that they cannot by speech or writing be expressed, thou were best to imitate some cunning player, or get them by thine own practice. Only take heed, lest in making too many shakes, thou hinder the perfection of the notes. In sum, if you affect biting sounds or biting sounds, as some men call them, which may very well be used, yet use them not in your running, and use them not at all, but when you judge them decent. Interesting. Okay, use them not in your running. So okay, so that's, hope I'm interpreting this correctly. So he's talking about ornaments, right? And if the person watching, is not a musician, an ornament is something like this. It's something to decorate a note with. So let's say I have this, right? And I want to decorate that last note. I'm going to do something like that, right? In these times, I guess they were referred to as relishes and shakes. They can come in various forms. So something like that, or maybe it could be something like that. So what's interesting is that he's saying, yet use them not in your running. So which I do a lot, just a scalar run. I guess something like that. that may have been distasteful to them, and use them not at all, but when you judge them decent. So, let's say in Melancholy Galliard. Maybe something like that. I don't know. Be tasteful when using ornaments. That's what he's saying. Take this for a farewell, that this divine art, which at this time is by so great men followed, ought to be used by thee with that great gracefulness which is fit for learned man to use, and with a kind of majesty, what? With a kind of majesty. Mastery? Is he talking? Hang on, let me look up that word. Majesty. Hang on. Oh, majesty. Right. Okay, in this case, the I is a J. Alright, Jesus fucking Christ. So let's reread that real quick. Take this for farewell, that this divine art, which at this time is by so great man followed, ought to be used by thee with great gracefulness, which is fit for learned man to use, and with a kind of majesty. Yeah, so that thou have any skill in it, be not ashamed. At the request of honest friends to show thy cunning. But if thou chancest to get a bit of perfection, profane not the goddess, with making thyself cheap for a slight gain. All right. Okay, so he's basically saying, don't, this is a serious art, don't be timid or shy, if you want to play for your friends or whomever, but don't undertake this to impress the chicks, it's yeah, or just to make a quick buck, basically, because that sullies the art. And yeah, anyway, I have set down no rules for transposing out of music to the scale of the lute, because you have that delivered in the most elegant field of Emmanuel Adrianus, an excellent musician, and in many other books. Hang on. Emmanuel Adrianus. Emmanuel Adrianus was a Flemish lutenist, composer, and master of music. He authored the influential Praetum Musicum, which contains scores for lute solos. Lute solos, and more importantly, setting of madrigals for couple lutes and different ensembles involving lutes and voices. He also had an important influence on the next generation of lutenists through his activity as a teacher of music in his own music school. Interesting. Okay, so he published some stuff. Yeah, I'm going to keep this page because I'm going to look up his manuscripts. I'm going to look up his works and download them if they're available. Because he had, it said here he had lute ensembles. That might be, I know at least one lute player. It'd be nice if there were more lute players. Maybe we can get lute ensemble thing going. Anyway, he's a musician in many other books. Therefore, take this in good part, this one method of practicing on the lute, howsoever it be, composed in such a sort as ingenious man, and one that profits another art could attain unto. Receive it, I say, with a kind a heart as I offer with, and so I shall be ready hereafter to furnish thee with some other work of my own, more serious. Farewell. Okay, yeah, thank you. This was Jean-Baptiste Besard. Yeah, fine French lutenist, and here basically he's just saying, there's, I giving you all I could say about this, and here's some of my music, because he does have some music in here, or at least I think. Composed by the most famous Diomedes of Venice, lutenist to the high and mighty Sigismundus, the second king of Poland. I can probably get that. Is this a fantasy? Yeah, fantasies for the lute. Let me try a little bit of this, if I don't botch it. There's some cut coming time. Those are whole notes on those first two measures, and I think I've tried this before, actually. 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2. Is that supposed to be for the A or for the C? 1 and a 2 and... Yeah, I would say 2 and for the C, so... So forth, so on. Okay, I might actually take the time to learn this one at some point. Looks like it's within my level. It's a little longish, but I think I can do it. See, the thing I worry about the most is memorizing pieces. Lately, I've been having so much difficulty memorizing them. Which is good because it's helping my sight reading. But still, composed by the most famous, the Knight of the Lute. Who was the Knight of the Lute? Was this Besard? It wasn't Dowland. Fantasy number 1. Let's look that up. Who was the Knight of the Lute? Who was referred to as the Knight of the Lute? The title Knight of the Lute, or Cavaliere del Liuto, referred to at least two late 16th, early 17th century Italian lutenists, Lorenzino Treccetti and Vincenzo Pinti, both active in Rome with modern scholarship, now recognizing them as the Knights of Lute. Their name also appears in the epithet for Laurencini of Rome in Robert Dowland's 1610 collection Variety of Lute Lessons, and is used today by modern lutenist Matthew Wadsworth for his album of music by these historical figures. So Lorenzino Treccetti, a lutenist and servant to Cardinal Ippolito II d'Este. Another lutenist who has performed music by the historian. Interesting. Okay, so it's either one of those two. Cool. composed by the most famous Jacobus Reis of Augusta, Lieutenant to the most mighty and victorious Henricus, fourth French king. Okay. Laurencini of Rome. Okay, Laurencini. Epithet for Laurencini of Rome. The name also appears as the epithet for Laurencini of Rome in Robert Dowland's. Okay, so let's look up this douchebag. Laurencini of Rome was an Italian composer of the Renaissance period. Variations, okay. Composer. Cool. Okay. I guess that's what it was referring to. Alright, cool. Well, I'm going to cut out right here. It's been over an hour now. So the next time I go through this, we're going to go through John Dowland's observations. So that was Jean-Baptiste Besard's observations. Next is John Dowland's other necessary observations belonging to the lute by John Dowland, Bachelor of Music, for choosing the lute strings. Okay. Cool. So you had some words about choosing lute strings. Of fretting the right sizes of strings upon the lute. Of setting the right size of strings. Okay, that's important stuff. He's probably going to talk about tuning as well. I'm really curious to read about that. If I can read it, if I can make sense of it. That is. Of tuning the lute. Yeah, there it is. Necessary observations belonging to lute player, and this is probably about tuning the lute. Cool. When we get to this, I might recreate this in I guess in an aesthetic that makes a little more sense to someone of the 21st century. But yeah, otherwise I'm gonna go ahead and call it. Thank you for tuning in, whoever you are, and see you next time. Happy New Year, by the way.